As you know, I am chatting with Chris Duncan about your progression back into movement after isolation and how you can ease back into working out. Now, Chris is a wellness and fitness industry expert with a career spanning over 2 decades. He's also the founder and owner of CD Fitness in Perth. His passions lay in body transformations, functional movement, and rehabilitation for the busy professional. So, again, thank you for joining us. Chris, did you want to expand a little bit on what you do and how you came to be in this industry?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I've been doing this for a while. It's probably 1999 was my first certification. Started out as a personal trainer with a science degree in bodies, and it's just fascinated me ever since. I've been blessed that training's taken me around the world, and I've worked in so many different fields, teaching different things literally all over the world. And I've settled myself down in Perth, and yeah, I've sort of along the way, people have had big influences on my life and my career and steered me in different ways. And I've just found that yes, gym is good, but I believe it's got to be that more sort of wellness approach. And obviously movement's a big part of that. So yeah, the sleep, the stress, and all the pillars that I spoke about in the last time I spoke with Victory.
And just very quickly, if you didn't see that last session with Chris, you can find it in the V Library. He talks about the 5 pillars of health, and that's what he's referring to. Sorry.
Yeah, and I just think that the movement's got such a big part of our life, and a lot of people don't sort of consider some of the adverse effects of posture or an injury. I mean, I keep hounding my clients, or hounding them, I'm informing them that, an unattended ingrown toenail will eventually end up as a migraine, if you don't address it. And so just, just like the idea of moving properly. So I think that's one of the things I will really delve into today.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I'm gonna lead in with a few questions, if that's all right. So first off the bat, can you describe the effects COVID has had on our day-to-day life and how that affects the way people move?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this still is one of the most crazy experiences that any of us will ever be. I mean, they say it's a once in a generational thing. This is absolutely insane what we've gone through, and a lot of people are still well and truly going through. I've kind of looked at this, and when I was sort of preparing some of the things I wanted to talk about today, I sort of thought about what was the big things that I've seen. For those that don't know, I'm WA based, and that means that we are a little bit further ahead as far as unrestricted or less restrictions. So I've had the chance to see what can happen at the back end. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I sort of thought back, and I've had a chance to reflect and speak to a lot of my clients, and I did stay very active with my clients through the lockdown period. And I kind of saw 6 things. So I'm actually just going to share a little bit I'll share a screen here. So if we go to that one. So the 6 sort of things, obviously stress, and that was one of my big pillars that I spoke about was in the previous presentation. Stress is one thing that we really need to look at, and for us or everyone generally through COVID, the stress was always there work-wise, but all of a sudden it was a new version of stress. Fear of financial stress. We didn't know whether we qualify for JobKeeper. What was JobKeeper? Do we get JobSeeker? You might have built a business, you might have been working in a business, and through no fault of your own, you no longer have that business. There was just so much uncertainty. If you weren't worried about finance, there was a concern of health. I'm not originally Perth-based. Most of my family are in South Australia. My parents are there, and obviously you're worried about health of family and friends and loved ones and all that sort of thing. We had no idea how long this was going to go. We just didn't know. So it's all this stress, and it wasn't just emotional stress. It was physical stress. There was all these things, changes in routines and things like that. And for those with kids that I've spoken to, they said that the homeschooling was an exceptionally stressful time as well. I mean, all of these things had a huge effect in our our life. And stress can play major problems in how we function, how we mentally function, how we process information, how we deal with things. Small little things will build up, and it might be that on a normal day, something minor might just be, oh yeah, you can brush that off. But on the back end of trying to teach the kids something throughout the day and, getting a bill you weren't expecting and something else, that small thing might tip you over the top. So it was definitely something that I know stress from the clients that I've had the chance to speak to, that was a huge thing for them. The other thing, as I've put up here, is the routine change. Now, a lot of people went from having a routine to no routine. And again, I've put that little dot point at the bottom. That's not all bad, But for a lot of people, the routine was get up, move, so gym or class or yoga or something, work, rinse and repeat. But when you've had that routine removed, we humans don't like change. Well, we're very conscious of things like that. So when you've suddenly had your routine changed and you don't have that commute, or you are working virtually, your routine of going to the gym and seeing your exercise tribe, or whatever it might have been, your morning run, it was really easy that was one of the first things that went. Oh, I don't have to commute. I'm going to stay an extra half hour under the covers. Showers are optional because no one can smell me today at work, and I'm going to work on my couch. And so these things all affected. The roll on with that is you would have packed a lunch, or you had a healthy venue that you purchased your lunch from, and all of these things sort of fell out. And all of a sudden your relatively strict nutritional plan kind of gets put to the side, and your shopping choices, there's that extra bag of Doritos, there's that extra tub of ice cream, and all these things came in. I think that had a bit of an issue too. But like I said, not all bad. If you're a commuter, you just bought yourself an extra hour a day. You didn't have that stress of sitting in traffic or sitting on public transport with all these other people around you. You have more time with the family. So again, routine or change isn't bad, but I'm big on routines, and I'm big on practices. And when they are disrupted, it has a potential adverse effect on the body. This is the big one, and this is part of what I wanted to talk about as we move forward into how to move post-COVID, is the postural concerns going in to home offices. I mean, you can see the image that I've used there. Does that, I'm sure, I'd like to ask a question. I'm sure no one can respond to me, but that looks familiar. Suddenly we went from having ergonomic workstations and these beautiful desks that are all set up for us, and with very little warning, oh, by the way, you're working from home now. Now, I'm fortunate in that part of my business requires me to work from home, so I have an office set up. But not everyone does. So all of a sudden you are working from a dining room on a laptop. So you're hunched over. All of these things changed. All of our meetings were suddenly virtual. Again, if you were lucky enough to be able to continue to train, your home gym, it wasn't the big wide spaces. So you may have been doing things slightly different, slightly more cramped. We spent more time in bed potentially, or couch time. And all of these things had a postural effect, adverse effect. And of course, I read some crazy figures about how much more time we were spending on social media. So we were scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And let's face it, your posture's never great when you're scrolling on a device anyway, forgetting the mental diet and everything else that comes from that. So these are some of the other things that I've had clients express to me. And this was a huge thing as lockdowns got a little bit, deeper in. Now, if you were with family, if you were with, if you're a share house or everything else, great. And if you were able to navigate your way around into Zoom and do Zoom coffee catch-ups and quiz nights and whatever else, and which was great if you could. But there was a big time where people were quite alone. A lot of time inside their headspace. As I've spoken before about the gym tribe or whatever it is, your work tribe, your team that you're a part of. It's a phenomenal book by Sebastian Junger, and that's why I had it up there. He talks about people in combat, and they're in one of the worst situations ever, that when they come home, they want to go back. And you talk about the desire to go back, and it's not to experience what they did, but it's the camaraderie, the friendships that were built in such a tough environment. Now, work has that same, I'm not going to compare it to war zones, but work has that same thing, that they are your tribe, they are your people, and your family are your people, your friends are your people. And when you've had that removed, it's very hard for people to deal with. And even if, again, if you were able to do it through visual versions or virtual versions, it wasn't the same. And even now, I'm a big thrower of a high five, and I like things like that in the gym. And at the moment, clients will achieve something, we'll be like, that was good. And both of us kind of step back, and, we will kind of miss these things. And so that's you can kind of see where I'm going, that there were so many different aspects that we probably didn't consider that may have been being affected. And all of a sudden, if we're moving forward and we start moving into the concept of returning to work and gyms, we've got to appreciate that we've taken a bit of a battering in multiple ways. Don't worry, this isn't all negative. This whole, the talk does pick up toward the end, but at the moment, we've got to appreciate what we are or have gone through. Point number 5, obviously there was no gym. Now, as we were moving towards isolation, the gym did sort of get a little bit quieter, and there were some restrictions. And then one weekend, nationwide, just got wiped, and they said, right, there's no more gyms. And again, if that was part of your routine, I mean, I'm at a gym every morning from 5:30, 6 days a week. I see the same people. It is their life. It is part of what they do. It's how they get themselves to work. And that's removed. Suddenly you go, okay, I'm still going to train. I'm working on a goal. I'm going to get this. But you might not know what to do outside of your gym. You were used to a machine that did this, or a machine that does this, or the trainer telling you. Suddenly you don't have that. You've got to look around your house and go, can I do that with a broomstick? Can I, my dog? Can I, whatever it might be. You may not have access to equipment. You might not have the space to do it. I don't know what it was like nationally, but here in WA, there's a reason there's a box of cash sitting there. The price of gym equipment, gym became major commodity. And even now, it's still very hard to get reasonable gym equipment that's not going to take out a second mortgage just to do it.
If you can find it at all, I think.
If you can find it at all. I mean, there's talks of even the commercial companies. They were scheduled for a delivery August, September, and they've said after that, they don't know that there will be another one for a while of anything coming in. So hopefully that's not true, but all these sort of things, if gym was part of your life, or you had a desire to improve your health or wellness, you had to find a way to do that without the usual way. You couldn't just go to a large chain gym or franchise box or anything like that. You had to, find a way to do it. And of course, that extra time, all that stress, great, we don't have to work. If you were fortunate enough to get paid to not work, suddenly we got couch time and we were eating the Doritos and all the extra stuff. But with that, I've used the example of Joe Exotic when I'm talking about bad mental diet or poor mental diet. The fact that show became so huge, and I'm probably going to cop some flack for saying that it wasn't the most quality viewing, but we spent so much extra time. And again, I doubt we were conscious of how we were sitting on the couch. It's probably weren't sitting with nice posture and, even distribution of weight through the feet and tummy tucked and core on and all the rest of it. We were lounging. So a great post about 3 or 4 weeks into lockdown, and it's something we joke with my clients. They said, once a week, try the jeans on, because the tracksuit pants tell you it's all okay in the kingdom. And had a lot to do with the extra sitting and chewing and watching, binging series. So for me, those sort of 6 points, which if we look, stress, change in routine, postural concerns, and again, you can see where they all came from: the lack of gym, with the home visit, the home office, the Netflix time, the time alone in our headspace, the inability to move and be active, and that extra screen time, all potentially had an adverse effect on our body. So let's stop that share for the moment.
So obviously, you know, there are all these kind of really, you know, negative connotations when it comes to not moving. But I guess one of my massive fears is the risks of coming back too quickly, you know, jumping into a previous program or being too overzealous with the return to being at the gym. Like, I know I went back to the gym and I was sore, like sorer than I've ever been.
Yep, absolutely. I've got a little video I want to link, and it sort of shows it's really good, especially for those that have worked from home. Now, I want to say this isn't just a post-COVID thing. This is how people should approach any break in training. I'll bring this video up. So basically, you know, your usual good posture. If you can see all the muscles that are active, suddenly we change where we are, and you'll start to see what muscles are sore. Again, shoulders, lower backs, the back of the legs, the hamstrings. So this here is the bottom part of the tailbone, our hips and pelvis. So you can see we're stretching out, stressing lower parts of our back, lower parts of our body. Our pelvis tucks under. Now, unfortunately, as that pelvis tucks under, we shorten through the tummy muscles, which is sort of what we're looking at on the front side, that yellow marker there. You know, as we start putting our back into flexion through the lower back, this is discs. You always hear people talking about bulging discs and things like that. So we irregularly stress our back. Now, the terms they're using here, gastroc, they are calf muscles and the backs of your legs. Everything connects up through the body. So just imagine if we have been sitting. Again, workplaces tend to put a lot of emphasis on good, safe, ergonomic setups. But if we're suddenly on the dining room table on a laptop, if your hands are here, there's no way your screen is up where it should be. So you are down and you are round. Now we're talking at least 6 weeks, if not more, that we were sitting in these environments. And we moved from bed to potential bad workspace to couch. And we took away the yoga class. We took away the weightlifting. We took away all these kind of things. Now, if you go back to that image when it showed the person leaning forward and sort of slouching under, let's imagine you've been in that position for sort of 6 weeks. Your muscles through the chest, they're going to tighten up, they're going to round. So not sure how you guys were, but my mum was always saying, you know, pull your shoulders back, lift your chin, look proud, all those sort of things. If we're here and then we go to the gym and say we're going to do a boxing class, you want to be back. You want to be nice and tall so that you can throw those punches. If you're here, your shoulders are really restricted. Your back is in a compromised position. If your trainer or the class you're doing says, all right, take that weight and put it overhead, you're here and suddenly you're trying to push up overhead in muscles that are rounded. Muscles that should be short and functioning are long. Muscles that should be nice and flowy and moving are short and tight. And it changes our posture. You then try and throw that under the hammer. You try to put that under load in the gym. Shearing effect on a knee joint, moving a shoulder joint, for example, through a different way, compressing back discs in a different way. All these sort of things can have a really negative effect on how you move if you don't acknowledge that you might be tight in certain things and looser in other areas. Just want to make sure that they're corrected before we jump too deeply into it.
Right. So in the title, you said a guide to not breaking yourself. Is this kind of what you meant by not breaking yourself?
Yeah, physically, definitely. I mean, let's imagine you've been working on something and you've been lifting 100 kilos. Say you could lift 100 kilos on something. Now, it takes at least sort of 6 weeks before your strength does start to decrease.
Six weeks?
Yep. So it's not to say that it won't hurt. It's not to say that it won't be hard to do it, but you can, in theory, still move that same volume. But if we've compromised how we sit and we've had that period, if not longer, off from these movement patterns, if you jump in and go, well, I could lift 100, day one, yep, let's go for 100. the body's just not ready for it. So you definitely want to ease back. So physically, there was definitely a concern with jumping back into your routine. But I also am worried a little bit about the mental effect that has on not being able to perform. I'll give you an example. I'm sure everyone here has started a movement like a routine before, and everything hurts from the earlobes to the tips of your toes. Breathing hurts, getting the milk out of the fridge hurts, and you're just like, why am I doing this? And each workout, the severity gets less. It's gone from 5 days to 4 days, and within a few months, it's less likely you're going to pull up really sore. If you start back, you've got to go through that again, potentially. And so what I'm worried about, anyone who takes the steps in to become a gym person or to have a positive effect on their wellness, that takes so much courage to come back and have to maybe have stepped back. You have had some bad food choices. You've let your sleep patterns go and all the rest of it. Moving into that, it can be a hard barrier to go, I don't want to have to go through that again. Or heaven forbid, you've gotten through it and then you come back and you've lost so much that it gives you a real mental blow that you're just like, oh, I put all this work in and I've lost it. And that's what I mean by not breaking yourself. I want people to understand that when you come back, respect what you've had to go through. It is going to be a little bit tough. You are going to have to regress a little bit and earn the right to, earn the movements, go back a little bit, have a nice structured approach, taper yourself back up, ramp in, give yourself a month to 6 weeks of ramping. That 6 weeks, you'll be back where you were. And if you do it properly, I believe you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of where you were pre-COVID. Just got to make sure that we mentally know and are prepared that there might be a reduction. Things are potentially going to hurt. Things will come up, even post-COVID, 10 years from now, things will come up. But this kind of progression is going to have to be here for life. And I think if we can get that message out of today, it'd be phenomenal.
Definitely. And I think maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that once you get to a point, your body does become more elastic. And even though you might lose, that strength or that flexibility, it does become easier to gain it back every time. I'm not sure whether that's because it's mentally easier because you've experienced, or physically easier, or a bit of both, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, all of the above. Definitely an aspect of mental muscle memory. Like your body, the first time, if you could get an absolute beginner in the gym, their first movement they do is quite uncoordinated, quite, everything's active and it's all over the place. The progression's quite quick because it opens up the neural pathway. Basically, the brain learns how to activate that muscle efficiently to turn it on. So you'll see an early progression. So if you stop that, you might have a little dust on it, but you can clean that off and that you'll get back to that movement quite quickly. Yeah. So you do have that muscle memory. And again, also, as you said, you've done it before, you know what to do. You can get through it again. So all of those are definitely applicable.
So what can we do to mitigate the risk of injury? Are there specific warm-ups that you would recommend we do beforehand?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Start by actually warming up. I still see people walk into a gym. This will do. And just start lifting. Yeah, look, at least sort of 3 to 5 minutes. Ideally for me, it would be 8 minutes of some kind of lower intensity aerobic movement. The row is great, cross trainer, treadmill, that kind of thing. Something just to get the blood moving, especially if you're a morning trainer. If you've come out of bed, it's cold at the moment. We hop into the gym. We want to make sure we've elevated the heart rate a little bit.
So like a cardio to begin?
Yeah, but lower intensity.
Okay.
We're looking, enough to glisten slightly.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of higher blood pressure, higher heart rate, higher body temperature, things like that.
Okay.
The best kind of warm up is what's called a dynamic warm up. So you're not sitting and statically sort of just going, I'm going to hold this and stretch.
Yeah.
It's more say we're going to do something for the chest, just the ability to, open up. You take it to the end range of which you're going to put it under load.
Okay.
So if you were going to squat and have a bar on your back and squat, you want to make sure that you take yourself through the range that a squat would take with less weight. So body weight, for example, maybe a body weight squat for 10, and then put the bar on and squat for an 8, and then put a little bit more on and squat again, and work up to the number you desire to lift, or that your schedule says that you should lift. So I think the best thing to do is, like with all of my clients, we come up with a plan based on their job, their injuries and things like that, to activate the right muscles, to loosen up the tight muscles, and then all my clients are in sort of 15 minutes before to do all that kind of prep work, or prehab as it's called. You prevent injuries through good movement, and then jump into your stuff. So just give yourself that ability to be prepared for what you're going to do.
Okay. So just to kind of go over it, something that's going to warm up the body, maybe like a brisk walk, some more kind of dynamic stretching that mimics maybe the lifts that you're about to do. And then after your lifts, is that when you might go into those kind of more held stretches?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
Some kind of a recovery mode, static stretching. If you're going to statically stretch, that's when you would do it. Otherwise, things like foam rollers can help out, and those sort of recovery, saunas, all that kind of thing can really assist.
How terrible. Yeah, that sounds awful. Okay, I guess my next question would be about motivation. I feel like I've definitely lost it after being out for 6 weeks. It might even be more. It kind of seems like, obviously you're in Western Australia at the moment, so it's a little bit different, but from Melbourne at least, it feels like we're probably going to go back into lockdown. It's really difficult to keep motivation up, and even more so to go back to the gym. Is there anything that you would recommend we do to get over that emotional hurdle?
Absolutely. Look, motivation is one of the hardest things, and it's also probably the reason I've had a job for 21 years. It's we hold you accountable to come and do the gym thing. I guess you've got to ask yourself, are you happy how you are at the moment? Is there something you want to change? And pre-COVID, was there something you were working towards? It could be a birthday, it could be a work function, it could be a wedding, it could be just, not jiggling in certain areas. It can be doing a pull-up, running a city to surf, all of these things. Whatever your goal is, revisit it and ask yourself why. I mean, my favorite question to ask old and new clients, everyone I meet, when they're talking about their goals, they'll rattle off everything that I want. I'm like, okay, how would your life be if it was easy? People say, oh, it'd be amazing. Okay, cool. So what do we need to do to get you there? Oh, I need to be more confident. Okay, so what's confident? And then you can see that start. So if motivation is struggling a little bit and you've got a little bit of time, okay, how would I feel as if I felt amazing? Okay, so then what is stopping me from feeling amazing? I'm a big thing of routines, practices, and goals and things like that. So I think if you are going to spend some time, for me, that's why coaches have jobs. I've had coaches and mentors all along, and I'm working with one of the best coaches at the moment. And you sit down and just go, okay, SMART goal. I'm sure some of you might have heard what a SMART goal is. It's something. One of the things I hear a lot, I want to get fit. Okay, what is fit? So we start breaking it down, and SMART basically stands for something that is specific, something that is measurable, something that is achievable, or I believe it should be actionable, something that's realistic and has a time frame on it. So
I love this.
Yeah,
you'll have to send it through to me so I can send it to everyone in an email.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling for motivation, I think set up a short term, a medium term, and a long term SMART goal. And once it's all good to put a goal down, but that's about this much of the process. You've got to have a goal that is specific. Fit is not a specific goal. It's Or I want to lose weight. Oh, I want to lose 12 centimeters off my midsection. I want to lose, I want to go from a size 14 to a size 8. I want to go from 90 kilos to 87 kilos. I want to run city to surf in under an hour, whatever they might be. Make sure that it's measurable, because otherwise, how do you know all the effort you're putting in is actually going to happen? Again, achievable, but for me, I sort of turn it around a little bit. I use actionable, because it's all good to come and pay a trainer and say, I want this, and suddenly it's almost like they've handed you the reins and here's my goal, get me there. Whereas if you put it down as actionable, what do you need to do to get this goal? Now, if one of them is a weight loss or strength goal or something like that, we might need to address some injuries. So it's all good that you want to go and squat heavy or deadlift a big weight, but if that ankle's niggling or your back's not strong, your first 6 weeks might be exactly what we just spoke about, that it's a ramped up progression to address that tight hip flexor, get your core stronger. Is it realistic? I want the bikini body by summer and it's November. Maybe not. Summer 2020. But again, if you go, I'm going to lose 10 kilos in a month, look, Biggest Loser says you can do it. But is it long-term? Is it safe? Is it healthy? No, let's look at some more realistic goals. Let's say 0.5 kilo a week. So maybe 20 weeks. So maybe closer to that time frame could get you the 10 kilos, but that's a life goal. It'll be off forever if you can do that. And again, put a time frame on it. I want a 6-pack. By when? As long as I've got it before I die. It's not really going to keep you motivated to get in. Set a goal. Pick a target. I'm 40 in September, so I've got some goals around wanting to achieve things before I turn 40.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think that's a really beautiful holistic approach. And we kind of spoke about this earlier, which is that I feel like people have a more holistic approach just to life in general at the moment. It's one of the beautiful things that's come out of COVID. You've kind of already said it, but is there a more holistic way that we can approach exercise and, our mindset around it?
Yeah, I think so. Going back to the 5 pillars that I spoke, I'm already seeing that. And it could be because the people that I'm dealing with have been listening to me for long enough now, but I have noticed that even with the people in the gyms, they might not have had access to weights at home. So they might have had resistance bands, and all of a sudden they're doing different things. I mean, I work in quite a large box gym, and I have noticed that the numbers are down, but friends of mine who own smaller community soul-owned gyms seem to be a little bit bigger. There's people trying different things. Zoo, animal flow, which are a couple of movement, primal movement techniques that are becoming really popular. I feel like there has been a shift, and yes, COVID has been horrible, and I don't want to sound like I'm making light of a really bad situation, but there are some amazingly positive things that you can come out of from this. And I know it from my experience, again, having been back in the gym for a month and having the ability to talk to people about where they were, knowing the people before, what they've experienced and how they're feeling moving forward. I'm hearing all these things, and people are really addressing things differently. I had a couple of clients who were really stressed, really dealing with some stuff, and it wasn't serving me. I'm out. Might have moved a job, or they've there's all these different things that they're just some bad habits that were there, and they just sort of noticed, they went, you know what, I didn't need that extra glass of wine, or I'm just the habits that they had. And I feel like there has been a universal shift generally with things, which I think is amazing, because that will have a positive influence. One little change moves forward, and we just, you just feel so good as you go. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I mean, I just read I'm going to quickly, because I'm becoming a little bit aware of time. I just launched a poll which just asks you quite plainly what's stopping you from returning to your normal gym routine? If you could just quickly pop your answer in, that would be wonderful. But I think one of my biggest fears at the moment, especially with Victoria, especially with the cases growing and us having to go back into lockdown, is my cleanliness around gyms. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to approach it. And you saying you come from one of those big box gyms. Is there other precautions that we should be taking outside of just kind of spray wiping our equipment down?
Yeah. Again, I'm assuming state by state will follow a similar protocol, because ours was really strict and really rigid. There were things that were just removed out of the gyms completely. So anything that had a porous surface, foam rollers, mats, all those kind of things were completely removed. So you'll see people come in now, their gym bags have their massage balls in it, their resistance bands in it, their foam, everyone's bringing their own.
Okay.
We started out with, we had group fitness only, and it was up to 20 people in the building as the restriction. That was the first stage.
Okay.
Even now we are restricted in numbers, but our number restriction is 300. So it's not a concern based on the size of the facility we have. But there are cleaning products everywhere. We personally have at least a staff member, if not multiples, wiping every machine. There is ISO wipes around everywhere. There is sterile hand pumps everywhere. And people are generally conscious of their space in the world and where they are. And I believe, having seen it, I was there day one when we opened, not because I didn't think there was a risk or anything, but if we're safe about it, there was definitely a way that we could do it. And if you are smart, you can all work together. And I'm yet to see or have to pull up a gym member about not wiping something. We basically put in a rule, 2 towels, one to lay on, one to wipe your face with, so that you weren't then wiping and contaminating. And generally speaking, everyone's been really good. And I think you'll find gyms are starting to put in some protocols of some things that they probably wanted to do, but couldn't for fear of blowback. So I know our class booking system, and the classes are a little bit smaller, numbers and all positives. And I think there is absolutely a way to navigate back through the gyms. Now, whether you go to a big box or a more community-driven, smaller, sole-owned gyms, you'll see that they are. A lot of people talk about pods, where you are allocated a space where you have your gear and things like that. The small gyms can do that. There are so many positives that you can do it, and yeah, if we're safe and smart, it won't be a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's a couple of people that have said that lack of motivation is what's stopping them from returning to their normal gym routine. And I know we did talk about goal setting and that being like a really wonderful way to self-motivate. Is there anything else that you wanted to add onto around like that lack of motivation? Maybe what are some of the benefits of ramping your comeback with a strategic plan?
Yeah, I think bet yourself a win early. Pick the low-hanging fruit. As crude or as simple as that might sound, if you have been indulging in something that's been really good, and you've noticed things are not going in the direction you want them to, be it weight or energy or mood or whatever it might be, make a small goal to go, all right, I'm going to try and remove something, or I'm trying to put something back in that's positive. Those small things can make a big change. If you lost a centimetre or a couple of inches or a couple of kilos in a few weeks from doing something that you knew was a bad choice to begin with, and it just kind of creeped up a little bit more and a little bit more as you scrolled and Netflixed a little bit more, that low-hanging fruit, you've made a small change, you've seen a great result, that carries you to the next one. Progression's progression. It doesn't matter if it's a millimetre or a mile. Grab that. I made a change and it had a positive effect. What if I made 2 changes? What if I made that change and added movement? What if I addressed, my shoulder sore? Okay, maybe I'm not ready for full-blown gym yet, but if I get some needles, get some acupuncture, get some massage, get a massage ball, or YouTube how to unbind a shoulder, that's where the ramping can come in. you can hire a trainer, you can attend a class. Those little things will actually mean that when you do go back under the bar or try to lift something or box or whatever it might be, your body's in such a good place to be because you've got these small wins. As I said, you've picked off the low-hanging fruit, you got rid of all the bad things, and each little victory carried you through to the next big one.
No, definitely. I would also maybe mention that your motivators don't always have to be completely physically focused as well. You know, we were talking about this new, beautiful, holistic approach that we have to just our everyday lives, you know, the way we work out. You know, it could be, as opposed to like, I want to reduce the size of my waist, it could be, I want to open up my community. You know, we've spent so long in isolation. And, you know, you mentioned that one of those massive factors in, you know, our posture going and, you know, our bodies going and us wanting to scroll more is that loneliness and that depression that comes from being isolated. You know, maybe one of those motivators could be wanting to make a new friend. Just one, just in the first month. Doesn't have to be huge, but it's, you know, could be a really good way to track that progression.
Absolutely.
Back into working out.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think the way that we have exercised is going to be changed for good? And if so, do you think it is good or do you think it's bad?
I think any exercise is good. So I don't care if you watch a VHS of an old aerobics class in your lounge room, or if you go to CrossFit or one of the other big brands, or whatever it might be, as long as you're moving. But I do feel that the way we have moved is going to shift. And like I've said before, whether you choose big box or small, I think the small gyms are in a good place at the moment.
Yeah.
Fear of if there's second wave, further restrictions, whatever, the smaller ones can turn around and go, we've got this under control. You have your pod, you have your self space, and we are already limited and well sorted, well spaced. I've had a lot of clients that were, you know, that they chose to walk because it was the house got boring. It was a reason to walk. They're actually continuing the walking, even though the gym is open. And a few people had walking buddies that would, whilst they couldn't walk together, they would walk, you know, within social distancing rules, and they, you know, space them out and walk around. We've got a lovely lake a few minutes from my house, and they were walking that. Although they are back in the gym, they've rescheduled their training to fit in their lake walks with their friend that end in a coffee where they meet at a coffee shop. They do the walk, they have coffee and cake at the end of it, and that's now part of the routine. And they've actually accepted that they don't have to be in a fluoro-lit, recycled, air-conditioned room full of 100 other people huffing and puffing and sweating. That's still aerobic exercise. That's still a form of movement. And the benefit of vitamin D, social interaction with your tribe, the stress relief of someone close and caring, that's movement. And that's way more powerful than half hour with your headphones on a cross trainer in the gym.
Yeah, definitely.
Seen a lot of that too.
Definitely. Now, I'm going to finish up there. I would love for everyone, if you have any, to include your questions in the chat box or the Q&A box. And while you're writing those down, Chris, do you have anything that you want to plug? Do you have anything that you want to offer? And please let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, sure. Knowing that we were coming out quite a bit before you guys, I've been working with my clients on a sort of a how to get back, and I've been refining it as I've been seeing that. So obviously being Perth-based, what I can offer to you guys is I have an online platform, and I've built sort of a 30-day re-movement sort of plan. So essentially 4 weeks of just making sure the joints are ready to be loaded. Body has, so there's a really well-known trainer called Paul Check, who basically established or designed that there were 7 major primal movements: to twist, to hinge, to squat, to lunge, to push, to pull, and walk or gait. And using that as a model, I've sort of put together a 4-week or 30-day movement package to make sure that whatever phase of returning you are, whether Perth, you can come back, or in the eastern states, if you can't quite come back yet, things that don't necessarily require a lot of equipment. It's just a movement package. So basically, I just said for the Victory listeners, for people that are here, $30 for 30 days, and it's all app based, it's all video based, but we can also do communication this way, and calls and digital text and stuff like that. So if anyone's interested, I'll forward through my details to Kate, and you can pass that on for anyone that's interested.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'll include that as well as the SMART goals in the email that I send out to everybody, obviously, to thank you all for coming in. Now, we don't have any questions, so I think that's it from my end. I feel like I've talked your absolute ear off. So
thank you. And that we covered everything thoroughly.
Exactly. Just done our job really well. But obviously, if people do have any questions, more than welcome to get in touch with Chris.
Absolutely.
He's on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
So feel free to do that. Do you mind if I include your LinkedIn in that email as well?
No, you can put my personal email as well. It's just chris@cdfitwell.com.
Perfect.
I'll forward that on to you as well.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you once again so much for presenting with Victory. We really appreciate it. If you do want to find Chris's other video with us, just go to the V Library, which is on the website. Otherwise, we look forward to having you again soon.
Fantastic.
Right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.